Sprinkles, Santa Claus's special elf. Because everything is special with sprinkles. Santa Claus knows you're special too, and he has something to say to you. So listen close as Santa Claus shares holiday cheer with you. You can leave a special message for Santa Claus and get on the nice list at www.santaclaussays.net. Now here is the big man himself, Santa Claus!
Ho, 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 Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to all the boys and girls of the entire world who come to Santa Claus Says today at santaclaussays.net to share three things that Santa Claus says to you. Santa Claus says, be good for goodness sakes. SantaClausSays.net comes to you, brings you three things every day during Christmas time of 2023. You bring you Christmas cheer, and our elf Sprinkles helps us to have a lot of fun with Christmas spirit. We also read a wonderful, wonderful Christmas adventure story. Today, you're not going to miss it. It's all about the reindeer. And then we also read a letter to Santa, and our letter to Santa today is really, really wonderful. So you don't want to miss that. You can always go to SantaClausSays.net, and that's where you can leave me a message, and Santa listens and responds to you. SantaClausSays.net, you can leave me a voice message, you can leave me a text message, or you can also leave me an email, and you do the email at SantaClausSays.net/present, and Santa Claus will send you a present in your email. Well, there's our glockenspiel, boys and girls, which is our chime that Sprinkles always rings to tell us that it is story time. And it's story time we like to share every day during Christmas of 2023. This book, The Life and the Adventures of Santa Claus, and it's brought to us by the good people at the Gutenberg Project who help us to to read this book. And we read a chapter every day. So if you miss any part of this, go back to a previous episode at SantaClausSays.net, and you can find it there on the podcast or on the YouTube channel, youtube.com at Santa Claus Says, and you can find us there. We're on YouTube and Facebook and on the podcast and at the website every day during Christmas time of 2023. But today we're reading the story. We're continuing a story from the second part of the book called The Manhood of Jesus. And we've been reading a chapter about the reindeer, how the reindeer and Claus got together. We started the story yesterday, and we're going to continue it today. In this part of the story, Santa Claus has just been able to get a sled made for the various reindeer to be helpful to. And so the reindeer began to communicate with Santa Claus about what is next, how they're going to utilize the sleigh and the reindeer to help Claus to deliver toys. So let's continue the story now. The toy maker hurriedly began construction of a sledge using material from his woodpile. He made two long runners that turned upward at the front ends, and across these nailed short boards to make a platform. It was soon completed. But it was rude in appearance as it was possible for a sledge to be. The harness was more difficult to prepare, but Claus twisted the strong cords together and knotted them so it would fit across the necks of the deer in the shape of a collar. From these ran other cords to fasten the deer to the front of the sledge. Before the work was completed, Glossie and Flossie, that's two of the deer, were back with the forest, having been granted permission by Will Canuck to make the journey with Claus, provided that they would to Burzee be back to Burzee by daybreak the next morning. That's a very long time, said Flossie. But we are swift and strong, and if we get started by this evening, we can travel many miles during the night. Claus decided to make the attempt. So he hurried on his preparations as fast as possible. After a time, he fastened the collars around the necks of his steeds and harnessed them to his rude sledge. Then he placed a stool on a little platform to serve as a seat, and he filled a sack with his prettiest toys. "How do you intend to guide us?" asked Glossie. "We have never been out of the forest before except to visit your house. So shall we not know the way?" Claus thought about it for a moment. Then he brought more cords and fastened two of them together to spread to the spreading antlers of each deer, one on the right and one on the left. "These will be my reins," said Claus. "When I pull them to the right or to the left, you must go in that direction. If I do not pull the reins at all, you may go straight ahead." "Very well," answered Glossie and Flossie. And then they asked, "Are you ready?" Claus seated himself on the stool, placed a sack of toys at his feet, and then gathered up the reins. "All ready," he shouted. "Away we go!" The deer leaned forward, lifted their slender limbs, and the next moment, away flew the sledge over the frozen snow. The swiftness of the motion surprised Claus, for in a few strides they were across the valley and gliding over the broad plain beyond. The day had melted into evening by the time they started, for as swiftly as Claus had worked, many hours had been consumed in making his preparations. But the moon shone brightly to light their way, and Claus soon decided it was just as pleasant to travel by night as day. The deer liked it better, too, for although they wished to see something of the world, they were also timid about meeting men, and now all the dwellers in the towns and farmhouses were sound asleep and could not see them. Away and away they sped, and on and over the hills and through the valleys and across the plains until they reached where Claus had never been before. Here he called upon them to stop, and they immediately obeyed. But a new difficulty now presented itself, for the people had locked their doors when they went to bed, and Claus found that he could not enter the houses to leave his toys. "I am afraid, my friends, that we have made our journey for nothing," he said, "for I shall be obliged to carry my playthings back home again without giving them to the children of this village." "What's the matter?" asked Flossie. "The doors are locked," answered Claus, "and I cannot get in." Glossie looked around the house. The snow was quite deep in that village, and just before them was a roof, only a few feet above the sledge, a broad chimney, which seemed to Glossie big enough to admit Claus, was at the peak of the roof. "Why don't you climb down that chimney?" asked Glossie. Claus looked at it. "That would be easy enough if I were on top of the roof," he answered. "Then hold fast, and we'll take you there," said the deer, and they gave one bound to the roof and landed beside the big chimney. "Good!" cried Claus, well pleased, and he slung the pack of toys over his shoulder and got into the chimney. There was plenty of soot on the bricks, but he did not mind that, and by placing his hands and knees against the sides, he crept downward until he had reached the fireplace. Leaping lightly over the smoldering coals, he found himself in a large sitting room where a dim light was burning, and from the room 2 doorways led to smaller chambers. In one a woman lay asleep with a baby beside her in a crib. Claus laughed, but he did not laugh aloud for fear of waking the baby. Then he slipped a big doll from his pack and laid it in the crib. The little one smiled as if it dreamed of the pretty plaything it was to find on the morrow, and Claus crept softly from the room and entered the other doorway. We're going to leave the story right there, boys and girls, and come back to it tomorrow, because when we come back tomorrow on our next show, we're going to talk about how Claus was in the room and he saw 2 little children and he served them with his visit. This is getting really, really exciting, isn't it? The Life and the Adventures of Santa Claus by L. Frank Baum. He also wrote the book called The Wizard of Oz, which you may want to be familiar with that book as well. And a wonderful book. We're going to read it every day during the Christmas season. I want to remind you that on tomorrow, December 16th, we're going to have a special reading and presentation called Santa Claus Says Breakfast with Santa live. So live breakfast with Santa. I will have breakfast. I'll have my cocoa and my cookies. And I want you to join me on the 16th of December and on the 23rd of December, the day before Christmas Eve. And at 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, we will have breakfast with Santa. And you can ask Santa questions directly then, as I hope that you will do just that. There is our glockenspiel, our tone, our chimes, where Santa Claus gets now to read a letter to Santa. And just a reminder that you can always send Santa a letter or a message at SantaClausSays.net. That's where you can leave me, boop, press a button, leave me a voicemail. Boop, press a button, leave me a text, which I get on my purple cell phone. Boop, leave me an email at SantaClausSays.net/present, and I'll send you a present in the mail. I hope that you will do just that. Here's our letter to Santa today. It's a very short one, but it's a wonderful story, a wonderful letter that I got. Dear Santa, I think you're a great guy. Whoa, I think, and it's from Nikki. Nikki, I think you're a great, good boy. Not on the naughty list at all. What a wonderful boy. And I think all the children of the world are great boys and girls. I know that many of you love and appreciate and think that Santa's great too. And I appreciate that so much. That's why I want to share this time of year with you. And I love you, and I'm here with you. So please send me your messages at SantaClausSays.net, where you can send them by voice or by text or by email. And some of you might want to, your parents may want to have a video message, a personalized video message from Santa Claus, or perhaps a video call, a Zoom call with Santa Claus. You can check that out at SantaClausSays.net. Well, boys and girls, there is our glockenspiel. There is our chimes from Sprinkle saying it's about time to say goodbye. Just a couple of reminders that we have breakfast with Santa Claus live 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. So you might need to change your time zone or understand that wherever you're at, where you can have chats with Santa Claus there. And you can do that, you can do that at youtube.com at Santa Claus Says. And you can find me there. You can find me every day during the Christmas season at YouTube and Facebook and the podcast on Apple Podcasts and other podcasts, and always at SantaClausSays.net. Remember that Santa Claus loves you and listens to you, and Santa Claus says, be good for goodness sakes. We'll see you next time, boys and girls, here at Santa Claus Says. We'll see you next time. Merry Christmas. Goodbye.
You're special to Santa Claus, just like Sprinkles. Get on Santa's nice list at SantaClausSays.net and watch Santa Claus Says on YouTube. Tell him Sprinkles sent you.